Hey, what's happening? This is Brian James Shanley, and you are tuned in once again to my video blog, which is entitled Brian James Shanley Raw. One of the first things that you probably notice is that the gap between the most recent episode and this one is so great because I haven't done this in a long time. I have been depressed and saddened, I guess, by the condition of the world, of the professing Christian church of the United States of America, and just a bunch of things. We have essentially suffered a coup of sorts through controversial and suspicious circumstances. There's been a change in power of the presidency, and you can feel the United States of America slowly reverting back to the Obama era policies, the chief one being manage your decline, and basically being absorbed into a one world globalist concept of government that is technocratic and that is frightening. So we're in kind of a dystopian time period, a dark, icky time period, and a time period of absolute pessimism, I guess you could say. Everything's yucky. There's nothing good happening right now. And I have always, when I've been thinking about this show, I've been like, you know what? I don't even think the world or the church or the United States deserve my voice. You know what I mean? Because they let this happen on their watch. But I have returned. I don't know what episode number this is going to be because I am filming several, and I don't know in what order I'm going to release them, but by the time you're seeing this, there might be several in the can, and several might have come before this, several will come after this. But I wanted to have a couple of conversations today. This is probably going to take a couple of parts. I'm in the middle of a park, and there's a policeman looking at me like I'm doing something crooked. Let's get him. See him right there with his lights on me? I don't know what he wants, but he knows what he can do. See him? Right by my hand. Look at him. He's right there. You see him right there? There he is. That's the policeman looking at me, as though I don't have the right to be speaking to you or whatever. It's a time period we're living in. It's 36 degrees right now. It's freezing in Minnesota. And it's probably 2 a.m. But I'm not breaking any laws, so he can stare at me all he wants. He doesn't get my autograph. I wonder if this will zoom on him. I don't know. Nope, I can't zoom on him from here. But he is right there. You see him right there? He's looking at me and he's got his light. That's the America we're living in. But whatever. He can eat it. He can just watch me. I wanted to have a couple of conversations. In a previous episode, I discussed the Black Lives Matter movement. And I discussed the breakdown in communication that has contributed to the division in the country. And that is that both sides of the conversation have been misunderstanding each other. That actually received positive criticism, more so than anything I've done. And so I wanted to further expound on that concept, and I wanted to discuss in a deeper way other issues where the misunderstanding of each other has led to the police officer's just sitting there staring at me. Anyways, I'm not breaking a law, so I don't really care. The failure to understand the position of the other person, and the failure to empathize with the other person. There's a concept called putting yourself in another person's shoes, and I really don't think that that's happening enough. I'll tell you that I have, at various times in my life, held to multiple and conflicting political, philosophical, and religious worldviews. So I have walked in other people's shoes enough to where I can understand the other side of a conversation pretty well rather. But I wanted to just give you two sides of a couple of things here, and maybe it will be a positive contribution to the overall dialogue. The United States of America, she will ultimately be absorbed into some bigger globalist scheme, or she will crumble from within, rotting. But, you know, you can still be on the right side of how one would act during such a thing, in terms of how you treat other people and the contributions you make to the overall dialogue. Policeman turned his lights back on. There he is. See him right there? He's right there. Look at that policeman staring at me. Anyways, so a couple of issues I just want to do. I guess I'll just start with the immigration concept. And I've had multiple positions on this subject, and my position has evolved probably since I've even begun this show. But here's the deal. It ultimately depends on where you're coming from. I'm going to tell you if you hold to one side or the other. I'm going to tell you why the other side feels the way they do. This might need to be a series, and it's going to be choppy because now there's a second squad. Like, I wonder if they really think I'm doing something by... I'm going to keep them in the background here. Where are they at? Where are they at? Bastards. Hold on. Yep, okay. I'm in Rogers, Minnesota. The Rogers police have usually been pretty good to me. Even when they pull me over, they've let me walk away from it. So I don't imagine there'll be too many problems, but... well, there's better lighting right here. Okay, so here's the deal. If you view the United States of America, with all of her faults, as an independent sovereign nation state, the question is, does she have the right to define where she begins and where she ends? Her borders. Does every other country on God's green earth? Yes. Does Mexico have a border with Guatemala that they have a wall on and they enforce? Yes, they do. So is it logical to conclude that America, if she wants to survive as an independent sovereign nation state that's not overrun with people from outside, is it logical? What is this? There's a third and a fourth car. When a dude sitting at a park making a video is a threat to the security of the city, that's pretty telling. Let me get these guys here. There they are. They're all sitting there now. Anyways, so it's like this, right? I'm only telling one side, and I'll get to the other side in a second. Let's say that someone said, hey, I don't think you should have a door on your house. I want you to take the front door off immediately of your house. You'd say, no, I'm not taking the front door off. Why? For what purpose? On what basis? Surely you're a racist. Surely you're a xenophobe who just doesn't want people to come into your house and get a better life from what's going on under your roof. Well, no, I don't want my home and my culture and lifestyle and values interfered with by people from outside. This is my family. I have to protect them. Only God knows what kind of person's going to come in, right? That's why you have a door on your house, and that's why you have a fence around your yard. Why have a fence on your yard? Because I don't want people who don't have a legal right to be there to show up and introduce changes and dangers to the current way that I've chosen to do things. All right? This makes sense. So when the person says, America should have no border, you ask them to live it out to its logical conclusion. Let's start with your door at your house. Well, I can't have that. Then shut up. It's kind of like the people who want to disarm and take everybody's gun away. Let's start with the security people who protect your family. Well, I don't want to do that. Let's start with the local police. I don't want to do that. Well, then shut up. Because what you're suggesting, if you're not willing to implement it on yourself first, then you're putting it off on someone else because you have an agenda. So I at one point in this life was a nationalist quite strongly. I was even a neocon in my younger days, a George Bush style Ronald Reagan era type of person like that. I've had a phase like that. I think everybody has a phase like that. I'm not like that no more. But so if America wanted to do what it needed to do to survive, it seems like rational and minimalistic to have security at the border so that people don't break in. Now here let's flip the script. Let's look at it from the other perspective. Central, South, and Latin America historically have been populated by Hispanic, Latino, Chicano people, descended from the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incans, further up the Navajos, etc. And it's always been their land. So I look at, I'm from Minneapolis, okay? The Mississippi River divides Minneapolis and St. Paul. I will cross that at my pleasure every day if I feel like it, freely going wherever I want between Minneapolis and St. Paul, as my mother did, as her parents did, as their parents did. It is part of the history, heritage of my family and my country that I can freely go across this river. Now let's say that tomorrow we were invaded, whether it's by the UN, by China, by Iran, by North Korea, whoever, and we were conquered. And as they're dividing up America as to what country should have what and where one border should begin and where one should end, let's say that they use the Mississippi as the cutting point, all right? And let's say that as I sit here in Minneapolis, if I was to cross into St. Paul, which I've been doing all my life, let's say that they said, well, that's the dividing between one country and another, and you can't legally go over there anymore. You know what I would say? Here's how much I recognize your fake-ass division between two so-called countries. I don't recognize your border. This is my country, and I'm gonna walk across it at my pleasure as I please. I think this is the police again. I wonder if they're gonna mess with me or not. Hopefully not. 4 of them just stared at me. Oh, it's not a cop. Okay, good. They're still over there. I'm getting paranoid, I guess. Anyway, so I would not recognize it. And so I can, if the great-great-grandbabies of the people, the indigenous folks who populated the Central America and the Southwest of the United States, or say Arizona, Utah, whatever, into Colorado even, New Mexico, Texas, whatever, and, you know, Southern California. If people traveled freely between there and what we call Mexico historically, and then their great-great-grandbabies don't recognize that border, I would tell my children not to recognize some fake-ass border that China tried to put between Minneapolis and St. Paul. And I would tell my grandchildren, and make them tell their grandchildren, this border doesn't exist. Screw that. And I would cross it whenever I felt like it. So if you're able to walk in the other people's shoes, you can see why they feel the right to travel freely back and forth, because they can, because historically this land belongs to their ancestors, and that is true. Couple of other illustrations. Let's say that I was here minding my business, and let's say all of a sudden a group of Chinese guys came and they kidnapped me and they brought me to China, and I was surrounded by people that don't look like me, that don't speak my language, and I was made to be resident labor, and I was sold like property, right? And let's say that inside of that country of China, where I was essentially a foreigner and an ontologically inferior piece of property, let's say that they wanted me to sing their national anthem. Let's say they wanted me to salute their flag. Let's say they wanted me to participate in anything. I would never trust them. And I would tell my children, don't trust those bastards. Even if their grandchildren throw a bone to your grandchildren, always look at it with suspicion. I would never trust anybody who participated in anything. If the Chinese military and police force viewed me as a non-human and would kill me at will on the street without trial, or kill people like me on the street without trial, why would I ever trust them? And why would I ever teach my children to participate, you know what I mean, in that culture and way of doing things? I would always stay separate. I think it's human. I think it's absolutely human. If America was conquered tomorrow and the conquering country said, we want you to sing our anthem, I would say, screw your anthem. If they said, salute this Chinese flag, I'd say, I'll piss on it, but I'm not saluting shit, because that's not what I'm from, you know what I mean? And I would never, the people who tried to do that to me, I would never participate. And I would always be displeased, and I would teach my children and grandchildren. I'd spread it through my family, down through the generations. Don't ever trust the bastards that did this to us. So you have to be able to see it that way. You have to. Because if you can see, let's say it's happening to you, everything that's happening in the country, or that has happened. The United States of America, though she's founded on principles philosophically, she professes to be founded. In and of themselves, they're positive, and they're the best method by which a human being could flourish and become all that they could be according to their potential. However, if the execution is one in which the philosophy has been applied disproportionately, some people were left out. When they're discussing rights, they weren't discussing everyone's rights, things of that nature. A case could be made that there's going to be problems all the time. Whether it's transatlantic slave trades, Wounded Knee, Trail of Tears, various massacres, whether it's Chinese being forced to work on railroads, whatever the case may be, in a very real sense of the word, America was built on blood of sorts. And so you can't build a nation on a foundation of violence and blood and expect nothing to ever happen. That's very stupid, actually. You know, the great grandbabies of the affected peoples will obviously be distrusting and will obviously be looking to have the scales balanced. Anyone who can't see that, I don't know what to tell you. I can recommend a good tutor or whatever. But when someone, see, I was from the camp where it's like at a football game, when the flag was unfurled and they would sing the national anthem, I would have a tear in my eye. You might as well have been singing a Christmas carol. You might as well have been singing a hymn to Jesus Christ as God and Messiah. You know, or you hear, proud to be an American, blah, blah, blah. People want desperately to sing these songs and feel good and feel right in their conscience about it. And so when you bring up something that the United States has done for which it hasn't apologized or it hasn't made things right as a nation, their ability to sing that song is interfered with, and so they get angry at the person bringing up the facts. It's like there's a party and you've turned on the light and you're like, how dare that person turn on the light? We're in the middle of a party. Sometimes the light has to be turned on, you know what I mean? And so you have to be able to see things through the eyes of another person when you're sitting down at a table. The person, if you're a human being and they're a human being, and they have life experience that they bring to the table, and you have life experience you bring to the table, if you listen to them and see a human being talking from their life experience and from the life experience of their grandparents, you can almost see, wow, I see why they feel the way they do. Once you can see it like that and not dismiss it and not rattle off a bunch of prepared talking points that the television taught you, or Fox News taught you, or, you know, whatever, the people who Candace Owens handlers taught you, or whatever, and you can actually have a rational conversation. Like, okay, there is a problem here. Let's fix it. Let's try to find a solution. America as a country breathes her last. The Bible talks about the judgment of individuals. And it talks about the judgment of nations, entire countries. You cannot bash open the skulls of itty-bitty unborn children and boil them to death and cut them with metal instruments and choke them while they're crying and throw them in the trash can. You cannot have men that think they're women and women that think they're men having a parade through the streets, and you cannot be committing crimes against people as a nation, as the official position of your country, and think that God is not going to one day grow tired. When the wickedness of a nation reaches its fullness, the historical record seems to be that God delivers that nation over into the hands of the enemy, of the enemies of the people that populate the place. So America's, the sun has not set, but we are in the twilight for darn sure. It's very late in the day, and you can see the sky changing, or you know what I'm saying. For me, in terms of being involved in the political process, I mean, we just had flagrant, out in the open, mass voter fraud, and nobody cares. People are playing video games and smoking pot. So, America, whatever happens to her, the people here deserve. But in terms of having a conversation about the issues of the day, it's very important that you understand, what if that had happened to me? You know, then maybe you can see it through their eyes. And it goes for people on both sides. Try to see it through their eyes, and you're not going to get everything you want, and they're not going to get everything they want, but maybe you can find a place somewhere in the middle where both people can walk away from the table and they're at least happy with the place you've arrived at. Because the absolute polarization, we always used to say the Pledge of Allegiance when I was a little boy, one nation under God, indivisible. It's not indivisible. It's very divisible, and it's very divided. And we are on the brink of civil war. And I've been saying it since 2017 on this very show. I've been talking about a civil war in this country probably since 1997. And it's so close. I always told my daughter, I hope never to live to see it, but she'll be seeing it. I always thought my grandchildren would be fighting in it on the street. But here it is. It's probably going to happen in my lifetime. And so things have come into place quickly. The division in the neighborhoods, the division in the families, the division all over the place in the community comes from ultimately your inability and unwillingness to try to put yourself in another person's shoes and see it through their eyes. I hope something was said that caused some kind of thoughts to go around in your brain, and maybe next time you're having a conversation with a person who thinks differently than you, you'll give them a second to hear them and understand they're not trying to be a jerk. They're not trying to be difficult. They literally believe this. They literally feel this. And try to understand them. I'm actually speaking a message of unity, so write this date down. Usually I'm speaking a dividing message, ain't I? But this is a unified one. America's sinking like the Titanic, but we're rearranging a few chairs on our way down. And that's pretty much where I'm at right now. Oh, someone's walking towards me. I best get out of here. Goodbye.